Traxxas is a megacorporation responsible for an incredible amount of technology we see in the Marathon universe. They were a primary contractor utilized to develop and deploy the UESC Marathon on its extrasolar colony mission. Advancements in spaceship and mining technologies have made them a powerhouse in the tech sector for nearly 800 years. They do have some rather dubious potential ties to a rampant AI who may or may not have crashed the Martian net in the 23rd century, but who doesn't have their setbacks. Traxxas is one of the primary factions we took contracts from in the Alpha. Their first contract had us as runners, quote, taking inventory of the UESC stores. And upon delivery of these goods, Vulcan, Traxxas's AI agent, says this to us. The Unified Earth Space Council shipping manifest you acquired indicates abundant resources remaining on Tau Ceti 4. As the UESC is our direct competitor, their interest in these resources is a threat to our bottom line. Physical retaliation between corporate and government signatories is limited by the Corporate Nonviolence Treaty. However, you are a non-corporate asset. Engage UESC operatives and use force as you see fit. Imagine if a private company were to employ a group of highly trained militants to conduct offensive operations against governments, the regulations, or even private individuals. These are the kind of futuristic and far-flung dystopian stories that represent the cruel nature of this world. So what could this treaty be? Well, in simpler terms, we can assume that this is a legal agreement preventing direct military conflict between corporations and governments. But it doesn't eliminate the opportunity for proxy warfare, especially since the Tau Ceti star system is so far removed from regulators in Sol who may find some issue with the shadier aspects of these corporations' actions. While we don't get any further details as to when this treaty was enacted, we can assume that it was the result of a conflict that broke out between the UESC and some corporations some while ago. My best guess is that this treaty may stem from the 25th century. This was the era that the Marathon was built, and as we learned from the Traxxas Board of Directors chat room, the logs in the 2023 ARG, it seems very likely that Traxxas was the mediator between the UESC and MITA to end the Martian coup in 2466. The tension between MITA, the UESC, and the corporations is still on display in the era of the current game, and it makes it seem like Traxxas's involvement in Martian conflicts of the 25th century could have been even more direct than what is being said. This higher-level involvement in what would traditionally be the purview exclusively of the government could have been the point at which this corporate nonviolence treaty was finally needed for all entities to move forward. The reverberations of the backstabbing politics of Sol during the creation of the Marathon ship is at the center of the story in the original games, and it seems like that center point of origin is being maintained in this upcoming game. But how does this tie in to what we are doing as runners, and how the story may unfold? Well, from a gameplay perspective, it describes the reason why we are necessary. Runners' operations are a thinly veiled attempt to maintain some semblance of structured society, despite the increasing tension between the forces that hold the most power in the universe. Traxxas and Sekaguchi and New Caloric will ultimately be able to remain at an arm's length from the direct action of runners, either by denial of employment or by arguing that the direct violence against the UESC was a decision made entirely by the runners themselves. Ultimately, the ones responsible for upholding the treaty are the signatories, the corporations and the governments. Runners are non-corporate temporary assets that exist outside of this legal framework, and thus have no obligation to abide by the regulations of this treaty. This allows Traxxas to be indirectly involved in this Cold War, proving that even distant star systems aren't safe from human bureaucracy. This fits with the entirety of Vulcan's presentation, which has a distinct satirical tone that points out the absurdity of corporations committing acts of violence hidden only by corporate jargon. Politely asking for assassinations and theft doesn't change the nature of the action, and Although Traxxas is aware of this, they still uphold this false sense of professionalism when speaking to the very contractors who are doing these things for them. Most interestingly, to me, is how this frames the jobs of the runners. Remember this line from the gameplay overview trailer?
You are a runner. A cybernetic mercenary who's given up their human form for a biosynthetic shell with unique abilities and stats, capable of both tactical and fast-paced combat.
And yeah, that's true. Joe Cross even describes the runners like this.
The runner fantasy has always been a blue-collar fantasy,
Yeah.
for the most part. Like, you're doing a job. This is dirty work, and you're, you know, taking contracts from sort of nefarious or questionable sources. But, so, yeah.
So you're a mercenary, a blue-collar worker taking on the tough jobs? No. Unfortunately, in the dystopian world of Marathon, you are not a future soldier at the cutting edge of warfare and violence. You are not the hero. You are a corporate loophole.